This year as a whole has been incredible, because when Steve first contacted you in the springtime, it was off the back of, I think, a 28-ish 10K. And then a few weeks later, you ran your 27:47. And
yeah,
I mean, you're well aware of where that positions you on UK all-time lists, and with the names it mixes you with, it's incredible. But that, I mean, those performances in the summer must have given you confidence going into cross country, I imagine. But what's sort of changed for you this year then? That, I mean, you've obviously, been running well for a while, but this particular 12-month period's been insane. And so has anything changed? Has your training changed? Has your setup changed? Has anything changed, or is it just hard work that's starting to pay off?
I mean, I think it's really interesting. As you mentioned, I'm so glad we had that conversation right after it was like 28-20 something. And I was just so blown away by the fact I could run sub 14 after like a 14-ish 5K, in the same 10K race. And then all of a sudden you're going like 13:45s, or that's the goal this year now. And you just wonder, when it really happened. And as I said before, I think running is a very logical sport. And so when I get sort of these kind of great races, I kind of like to just have them compound. And I think that's how, I've been able to not lose my way or, get my head stuck in the clouds at this point, because I just, after any great race, I'm always so appreciative of the work paying off, that it just provides so much more motivation to put that work in and keep going. So I don't think there's, any real secret or any magic to it. It's more just, running has been so good to me in these past 12 weeks that it kind of allows me to really think, anything is possible. And when all I have to do is go out and run whatever miles to make it happen on the day, I have no objections to getting it done. I think, when you're in that kind of plateau zone is when it can get really difficult to get out, put the shoes on. So, I'm just trying to keep the ball rolling, keep the momentum going. And it's turned out absolutely amazing so far.
What's your group like at Stanford? What's your sort of training group like? Is it a good bunch of guys? Is it?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's been one of the biggest changes. I mean, I had an amazing team in high school that I was so lucky to have. But now the roster size is just, having 20 guys out there that can mix it up with you on any given day, and guys who are just so motivated at the highest level is insane. And, I try and surround myself by people who are going to, help me get to my goals. And, there's no shortage of that on the team. So that has been hugely helpful. And you can really tell at this point in the season, because I'm back home training now. And then I'll be back over in London, probably training pretty soon. And as soon as I, don't have that big group with me, it just gets 20 times harder. So yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Well, tell me a little bit about so just to provide context, obviously what I've read about you, bits and pieces. So you grew up in London till you were about 12, and then you moved to the States. Where did you move to? East Coast then? You moved to Florida at that age?
So my family, to draw all the strings together, my parents were born here in Jacksonville, Florida. Mm-hmm. Then before my sisters and I were born, they moved over for business to London. Mm-hmm. And they fell in love with the city, and they were there for 15 years. So 3 years after they moved there, they had my older sister and I, and then after 12 years to be back closer to their parents, they came back here. Mm-hmm. And it's just been a really interesting cultural experience for all of us. Because I'm still at the point where I've only been here for 8. So it's not quite 50-50 yet. And a lot of people, I think it's because I, walk, talk, and sound like an American. It's quite confusing for people. But, I still consider myself to be, more British because those formative years are just so important. Yeah. And now I'm out in California. Sorry, what was that?
You started running when you were in London, didn't you? You were at the club there, and you started your first races there. So yeah, it's always going to be with you, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it was this mandatory race we had at a school called Thomas's Battersea, and there were 3 other Thomas's schools, and they all came together. And I owe this whole thing to that because, as I said, it was mandatory. So I probably wouldn't have done it. I love playing, football, as in soccer/football. Yeah. And I was just forced out there, and it was a really gratifying experience. It was, I was the best at that sport without training, relative to the other sports I was playing at the time. So I was like, maybe I should try this. And huge credit to my mom as well, because we had this 2 times a week running practice where you'd run like 2 miles, and she'd drag me out of bed every morning, kicking and screaming. And eventually, I got the bug. And when we moved to the States, it I just wanted to give it a real shot, and it paid off. But there's no way I would have tried it if I hadn't been drug out there so many times.
Mandatory cross country. That is the way forward.
Oh yeah, it's brutal, and there's no preparation for it either. But I'm thankful for it. I know everyone else in my class was not, but I'm the one guy that benefited.
Yeah, well, that's good. And then, so obviously, you high school in Florida, and then what made you choose Stanford?
So it was kind of, when I was going through, the college process is so insane, and you only have so much time to figure it out. So I kind of got into this system when I was making the decision of looking at kind of these simplified pillars of what I was looking for in a school. And when I narrowed it down to 3 schools, 2 of them each were really good at one of the pillars, but Stanford was the only one that had both, and that was athletics and academics. Mm-hmm. So I had this one school on the side where it'd be like, if I didn't want to run as much, but I wanted to really focus on school, that would be a great option. And then there was another one where it was like, I could really go far in running here, but I won't have that, balancing it out. And Stanford felt like I wasn't sacrificing anything at all, other than huge amounts of time and effort trying to make it in, which luckily has paid off. But
what are you studying?
What was that?
What are you studying?
Oh, I have a pretty strange major. It's called symbolic systems. It's a intersectional major between computer science, psychology, philosophy, and linguistics.
Wow.
And it's kind of focused on like a more humanistic approach to computer science, and it helps you with like studying artificial intelligence and stuff, because you get this really holistic approach to the field. But it's all over the place. I love it because, I want to learn about as many things as possible, but at the same time have a usable degree. But I'm having so much fun with it so far.
That's the main thing. You want, when you're enjoying something, you sort of learn. I think you learn more effectively as well, because you just suck it all up, don't you? So, and do you apply that willingness to learn and to sort of soak in all that information to your athletics as well? Like, do you take advice, and do you read, and do you do a lot of research?
100%. I think one of the best, it's a really combination of 2 extremes. I love to learn and take in new pieces of information, but I'm also incredibly stubborn. So I think when I found something that works, I tend to kind of stick with it. And it really takes some convincing to sort of implement that into my training regime. But I'm surrounded by so many athletes that I respect, and incredible coaches at Stanford, that every so often there'll be, a new piece of something. But I have, going into the college scene, I've had to hit the reset button on a lot of things that, I thought were one way, but were maybe the other. Like, for example, in high school, I really believed that, training hard every day was the way you got faster. And, if you're not keeled over, throwing up after a workout, it means it was unsuccessful. But my coach has been, Coach Santos has been working really hard with me, and understanding that at these longer distances, if you don't leave yourself any energy to actually run the race, then you're not going to be able to not just race well, but also you're not going to make it to the next week of training. So that has been super helpful for me, helping me stay healthy, and also just helping me not burn out towards the end of the season, and be able to do things, that I never thought were possible.
Absolutely. Your performances are speaking for themselves. And in terms of the rest of this season, obviously I asked you briefly on email if European cross country was on your, in your calendar at all. I don't, you don't need to say anything to me now. I don't know if anybody's spoken to you. Obviously the trials were yesterday. I presumably have seen the results. And yeah, the team gets named on Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was Monday, but I feel.
I think it'll get picked. It'll get picked on Monday and announced on Tuesday, probably.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely have reached out and asked about that, because I wasn't able to get over because I'm still in school right now.
Yeah.
But I would love to run that race. I mean, I had such an incredible experience. What was it, 2 years ago with the U20s, and that was kind of really the first big step for me, because I'd raced one unattached race in college before that. Then I had a great day at the trials, and then an even better day at Euros. And I think that was, probably my biggest first step towards what we're doing right now. So it would be great. I would love to get selected for the team, but as my coach says, I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched. So we'll have to see about that one.
Historically, I mean, obviously this will, we'll find out this week if you're picked, and the race is like 2 weeks time. So obviously I'll be able to reference that, but it's obviously not the reason for this interview. But I think historically, they have always sort of looked to the NCAAs because there's always been a week. That week has always been, it's always been the week before the British trials.
Yeah.
It's almost, I mean, we've had athletes, I used to work for British Athletics years ago, and we had athletes that used to come across like after competing NCAAs, then straight over. And it's, I mean, that's not good for you either. Do you know, that's exhausting. So I think that's probably why the selection policy is as it is, to enable that little bit of flexibility. So yeah, fingers crossed.
I have fingers crossed. Off the record, I saw there was an athlete that did that this year, Rory Leonard, that I imagine you probably know about.
Yeah, he was second. Was he second?
Yeah, I think he was second for U23s, and I think he was about 80th at NCAA's. Probably, I think it was like high 70s or 80th for OSU. So I'm hoping that'll translate.
I didn't even clock that he was in the US. That's interesting.
Yeah, okay, he just moved over. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's competing for Oklahoma State. Yeah, a really good team.
Yeah, they are. Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, yeah, I hope I'm sure they will see sense, because you'd be a huge asset. And in terms of your experience, I don't want to talk too much about it, because it was 2 years ago, but totally. International vest. And had you long made up your mind you wanted to compete for Great Britain? Was there ever any doubt about that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't frame it as doubt. Obviously, there was a decision to be made. And the problem is there's an almost zero data set to pull the decision from. So it really is coming from myself. Like, I can't look to too many other athletes. There's a lot of dual citizen examples I can look at, but it's a pretty unique situation that I found myself in. And I think the thing that it really came down to for me was that 2 years ago when I was making the decision, I think it was only 25% of my life I'd lived in the US. And it was just that when I was younger and when I was starting my journey with athletics, I can really picture it right now. I was in my gymnasium at Thomas's Battersea, and we had these posters all around it of GB athletes who had medaled at the Olympics and the medal counts in each event. And it just, to me, that's kind of like where the whole dream started. And so it's where I wanted to end up. I think, to make that being my story coming full circle, would honor it a lot more than I think, just going the standard route with, what I appear as more than what I really think I am. So it's a complicated decision. Sorry, what was that?
You've got an equivalent in a different discipline, because Mondo is very similar. Mondo Duplantis, he speaks like an American. He was brought up in the US, but he opted to compete for Sweden because that was his homeland. So it's quite similar, just contrasting event disciplines. But.
Oh yeah, but I think Mondo's done very well with his decision. So I mean, I never really wanted to step on anybody's toes with my decision, but everyone when I went over for U20s was so accepting and so kind, and it really felt after that race that was the right decision, and I have not looked back since.
Were you fifth? You were at the top, yes. Weren't you? And do you see any? Does it give perspective in terms of the strength of the NCAAs, that experience you had? Because you actually just almost explained a little there, saying that Rory Leonard was like 80th at NCAAs, yet he's qualified as second automatic selection for Eurocross. So your gut feel would be that would translate pretty well for you. Do you see a big difference between the standards over here compared with what you've got?
I think what's interesting, I think you nailed it earlier, just when you were asking about what it's like on the team. I think the problem is it's just so well organized over there that it's not really about, American versus British. It's just about when you have these teams of like-minded guys who are able to, pursue an education without having to put everything into running. But if you want to put everything into running, you have this plan B where you're getting a degree at the same time. And then on top of that, you have, a elite to sub-elite training group filled with guys who are intensely motivated with you. It's just a hard system to beat. I really don't think if I was out there training on my own that I would have had any results like what I've had. And it just, to me, it seems like there's not as many groups over in Great Britain that can really parallel, what's going on in the NCAA, especially for our age. So
I think
that's the difference I see.
yeah, and actually that's interesting because quite a few athletes I've interviewed of late have said exactly the same. So there's an athlete from the UK, Sarah McDonald. I'm not sure if you know Sarah. She's a medical graduate, a medicine graduate from Birmingham, and she's just recently moved over to Mark Coogan's New Balance group in Boston. And part of that was because her group had sort of fallen away. And she trained with Lindsay Sharp, Andy Butchart's partner, and she's just had a baby, and she was left with not having training partners. And this move, I spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, and she said the biggest thing is having that group around her. It pushes you on all the time, and it gives you a reason to go out. So even just for easy runs, it's just, it seems to be a game changer. So, and I think they are trying to replicate that a little bit more over here, but there's not an equivalent that you can really pull out. So yeah, that does make sense. Just going back to your posters in the gym hall, what was your school called? St. Thomas's
Battersea. Yeah.
Can you remember the people on the posters? Can you remember who you looked up to?
Oh, that is a tough one. I remember I was always looking at the cycling one, but I can't remember who exactly it is. They're not there anymore. The whole thing's, I went back. It's actually where the Prince is right now. So when I went back, everything was very different.
The school that the little Prince George.
Yeah. And so I was shocked. I had to like put my phone, or like I couldn't bring my phone into the campus because my old PE teacher was giving me a tour. And
is he still there?
Big oh, sorry, what was that?
Your old PE teacher still there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Hawkins. No,
See,
he's great.
You need to aim to then have your picture on that wall for Prince George.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That would be truly full circle. We'll see about that. But yeah, that would be amazing.
Were there any athletes that you looked up to as you became more into the sport and more aware of the people that had gone before, and from Britain or otherwise? Were there any athletes that you looked up to?
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's so many. Obviously, I always looked up to Mo Farah. Mm-hmm. What he's able to accomplish is just completely insane. I'm a huge fan of Alex Yee. I thought he was so nice. I met him when I was doing U20s, and also I think the Alex Yee, Cole Hocker, Jakob Ingebrigtsen type, where it's just young guys who are just kind of showing that there's no reason to wait. You can get to that level right now, and I think that's helped break down a lot of barriers where in distance running you kind of consider you're like waiting for your prime to get to the highest level. Yeah, exactly. So those guys have really, shown up and shown that there's no reason to wait. You should go out and chase it right now. And hopefully I'll aim to contribute to that. But yeah, they're huge inspirations for me.
Yeah. And you must have loved seeing him do so well in the Olympics in the summer.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
And then looking ahead to next year, I mean, off the back of this year's performances, have your goals changed for 2022?
Yes. So it is. I mean, I know that I think that the thing that changed everything the most was that 10K at NCAA's running sub 28 was just completely insane. And ever since then, I've just been eyeing in on, because I thought I was looking at the Olympic standards, like the 27, 28. And when I was running 28 20s, that just seemed like completely preposterous. I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to wait a couple years, but I feel like I really have grown a significant amount since outdoor season. And the fact that now after cross, there's a whole indoor season and then outdoor that I can train through and build on. It really feels like dropping, 20-ish seconds is definitely possible. And so with that being said, I am obviously keeping my head, day by day, but I would love to, try and go after the world standard, an outdoor track, and hopefully make a team there. I'd love to go after an NCAA title. I mean, after coming fourth, there's no real reason I shouldn't be looking at that anymore. It's time to grow up, And so those are kind of my two main goals. And one that's even further down the road is
Paris.
One of the reasons I came to Stanford was to win a team championship in cross. Oh. So I really want to, get the guys together and see what we can do in cross country next year. But within this season, I would love to win a national championship of some kind and hopefully make the world's team.
How many years have you got left at Stanford?
So I am technically still a freshman because of everything that happened. So I have 3 years of cross left and 3 years of outdoor left.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 3 of everything left now that cross is over, which is kind of hilarious to think about because I'm now a junior.
Isn't Connor Mant's like 24 or something? He's like stayed in forever.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, it's an interesting choice seeing, you know, who does it, who doesn't, and the kind of variables that lead people to decide how long you stay in. But I'm super happy, you know, where I am. Obviously those decisions are down the road, but I'm at least here for 1 more year guaranteed. Because I've been here for 3 and I plan to graduate in 4. So that is a down the road call, but I'm just glad to be having these options.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a huge goal to have for next year, to, you know, an NCAA title. And it would be really special to compete for Great Britain at a World Champs in Eugene. I mean, which is where you PB'd, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
where?
Your 5 and 10K PBs were both in Eugene, weren't they?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable stadium. I don't know if you've seen the photos of the renovation.
Yeah,
it is such a great place to run, and something that was missing there was still, you know, a couple of COVID restrictions and travel was shut down. So I mean, at this point, it's like, when is it going to be over? But it would be amazing to really see that thing, you know, completely filled for Worlds, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's a really special one for the US as well to host it there, and everybody's really excited already. But yeah, it'd be amazing for your first like GB track team to.
It would be crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
And your family, did you say, are all in Florida?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jacksonville. So it's kind of like northern Florida. Yeah, not too much to say about it, but
it's closer than traveling over from London to watch you if you made it. So
oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a quick trip up from California though, so it shouldn't be too bad.
And are you planning an indoors?
Oh yeah, so whenever, you know, a lot of it depends on, you know, whether I make this team, when I take my break, because I'm still training currently.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll have to talk it through with my coach how to integrate it, because I'll be, you know, 4 or 5 weeks behind all my teammates. So it might be a slow start to indoor, but it's still an NCAA season. So I think, you know, we do a good job of laying the groundwork for outdoor and indoor.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to see how everything plays out to decide how to get me back in there and when.
Yeah, but you've done a lot of good groundwork with the cross. A lot of people over here sort of swear by cross country in terms of like winter training to get them through on the track summer. So you've got that too, which is great. And just one last thing on your training. I know Steve touched on it briefly. I think he sort of referenced was it like 2 sessions a week, 1 long run, you know, whatever that was at the time. In terms of your training right now, have you still got scope to like increase that workload? You're not like training at like an absolute max. There's still
no.
Yeah.
God, my coach and I have been very patient. One of the things that we were able to do that I think has been huge was when I came in, I was doing 65, 70 miles a week, which was still a pretty big jump up for me in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved up to 70, 75 my freshman year indoor season, and then COVID hit. So there wasn't as much racing, and there wasn't really a reason to be, you know, reserving any energy. So then we were able to really work my way up to 80, 85 freshman year of last year. And we held there all year.
Okay.
And then this past summer after the trials, I went up to 90, 95.
Wow.
And I've been holding that. And what we do is we do 3 weeks up, 1 week down. So it's really more like 90 when I'm averaging it out, but it feels super fluid and easy. I mean, those first couple of weeks when I was up there, it feels terrible, but then I've been doing it since summer. So, and it feels like there's a ton of room to grow. I mean, I know some of the best runners run, you know, north of 120 a week. So hopefully whenever I'm done with school or whatever, I'll have enough time to do something like that. But we've been super patient and have been really methodical about it. So there's a ton of room to grow.
Well, what does that look like then, just in terms of breakdown? Is it still at sort of same formula, like 2 sessions, 1 long run, and then the rest like easy miles, or?
Yeah, so I do like about a 17-mile long run, And during my long run, I like to run them a bit faster.
Right.
And so that we long run on Sunday, and that's when our week starts. I know a lot of people like to start Monday. That's how I used to do it. But since I've switched, starting on Sunday has actually been really nice. But we'll go, a couple of buddies of mine and I will go pretty decently hard on Sunday, depending on how much energy we have. Mm-hmm. Then a easy double Monday, mm-hmm. then a workout Tuesday. Then we recover with a medium long run, like 12, 13 miles on Wednesday. Then another double day on Thursday, which is, as easy as it can be, because then we have Friday's workout, which is usually pretty hard. Yeah. And then a very easy day on Saturday. Right. And so it's kind of just this up and down of, making sure you get the efforts in, but also trying to get as much energy back. And it's been working so well so far.
That's incredible. That's brilliant though. If you're doing that quite comfortably and you believe there's room to grow, then, that bodes really well for the future. So it's exciting.
Yeah. No, one of the best things I think for my training was when COVID did hit, I was forced to do 85 miles a week in Florida during the summer. Yeah. So it was pretty much 90 plus degrees always, except it would go to like low 80s after the sunset. So I was running 85s with no doubles, and I got really used to that week. Yeah. And then all I had to do to get to this new mileage was throw in like 4-mile runs twice a week on top of it. And it's been super easy adjusting to it.